Hello everyone, I'm Lucy A. McLaren. I'm a fantasy author. My debut book, Awakening the Commune's Curse, book 1, came out in May 2022 from Santa Fe Writers Project, who are a small press. But today we're here to talk about a short story that we've got coming out very soon, 30th of January, from Dragon Soul Press. It's called Reign of Fire. And so I'm here with Eric B. Hunter. I'll hand over to you, Eric, to kind of introduce yourself, talk about your story, and you're going to do a short reading from your story before I do one from mine. So over to you, Eric.
Absolutely. EB Hunter, Eric is my name, and I do a mixture of fantasy, sci-fi, and horror writing. Don't have any books out, but I have several short stories out, including this one that's coming out in Reign of Fire. And you can find all my stuff on my website, ebhunterauthor.ca, or on Vocal Media as well. It's on there. So my story that I have here today is called Kjell of Vittra, Rising Smoke. And I'll just read an excerpt from that here, and yeah, here we go. So, you've come into this pass often? Bernhard asked. Yes, Kjell admitted, though he felt his cheeks flush. Bernhard grunted. The land is considered cursed, isn't it? Off bounds to all people in this realm? Kjell squirmed and didn't answer, feeling Bernhard already knew. Must be good hunting, was all he said, and Kjell was thankful. Anyone from town would have likely turned him over to the authorities, thinking the dragon attack was caused by these trespasses. It wasn't, but he and his father would have been hanged regardless, and the people of Vittra would sleep well after doing so. They plodded along, Kjell telling him the way that led to the caves, rumors now founded to house the dragon. Bernhard's destrier flattened its ears and snorted, shooting large clouds of steam into the air. Snow started to fall, and Kjell felt a chill up his spine and eyes on him. Bernhard scanned the trees, looking for what had startled his steed. There, Kjell said, and pointed to a tree along the unbrazed trail. A snow leopard sat in its branches, watching them with yellow eyes, stock still with its fur puffed out for warmth. Bernhard squinted and leaned forward to touch the horse's neck. It's all right, Par. We see him. The horse raised its ears, and Bernhard flipped the reins to set him going again, though it didn't take its eyes off the leopard as they passed. The big cat was happy to let them go by. This wasn't its first winter, and it knew when it was outmatched. You spotted that leopard quickly, Bernhard remarked. I felt it watching, Kjell said. A grunt, then. That's a good skill to have. You need to know what's out there watching you. Lots of leopards around, Kjell shrugged. We're here. They rounded a corner, and the sound of water crashing over stone met them. The air was damp, and great smooth icicles hung on the already sharp white needles of the trees, making the entire opening look like frozen death. Kjell slid off the horse, and Bernhard followed. He took off his great gray cloak and threw it over Par. He leaned in and spoke to the animal, whispering in its ear and rubbing its neck. Kjell couldn't make out what was said, but didn't think it was important to hear what a man had to say to his horse. Kjell checked his weapon, releasing the small strap that held the sword secure in the scabbard, and pulled it out a palm's width to look at the polished black steel blade. He gazed at his mirrored reflection, looking at his haggard eyes and the jagged cut on his forehead. He thought he looked pale, even in the smoky black image. You ready? Bernhard said, pulling the massive axe from his harness on his equally massive shoulders. Kjell said nothing, giving a nod and shoving the sword back into its scabbard. He could feel his bile rising as he thought of the dragon's milky white scales and pale blue eyes. They skirted the waterfall and found a small goat path that scaled along sharp rocks leading to a cave. And that's all I have for you today. I guess I'll hand it over to you then, Lucy.
Mm-hmm. I will just say that was brilliant. I love your short stories. Can I just ask before I go on to mine, like what was the inspiration for this? Was it, do you have other stuff in this world, or?
So yes, actually, What happened was I wrote another story called Kjell of Vittra, Neverberg Nights, and I kind of intended it to be just a whole series following Kjell, and when I had written the other one, it was more of him being a grizzled veteran and hunting a monster in a city, and when I kind of shared it with people on our Discord chats and stuff, they basically were like, well, I want to know how did Kjell become him? Like, how did this happen? How did he get his start? And so I saw the submission call for Dragon Soul Press and thought, that's how Kjell got his start, fighting a dragon. So here we go. And that's kind of where that came from. And just from there, yeah. And then I have a bunch more planned out for him as well.
That's cool. Yeah, I have read that one actually, and that's the one that gave me like Witcher vibes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love that. I can't wait to see like what more you have. It seems like you've got to kind of fill in the gaps, right, between this one and the latest story, the first story that you wrote, which is like he's a veteran. So yeah.
So there's that whole time in between, kind of the fill in. Kind of weird, I guess, working backwards, because I read my story later and was like, oh, I should add other stuff that like I added in the lore in this one. And so yeah, probably gonna just do it chronologically at this point.
Yeah, I guess that's one of the things, like you can't, if you haven't written the earlier stuff, you can't really put in foreshadowing, or kind of, I guess it's not really foreshadowing if it's a later setting, but you know what I mean, like hidden earlier stuff. But even so, I recommend checking out that first story. So is it on your website?
Yeah, it's on my website there. Neverbird Nights is what it's called.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. So I'll stop delaying now. So I'm going to read from my short story, which is also going to be in the Reign of Fire anthology. It's called The Dragon Harvester's Daughter. And this one randomly actually came to me like in a dream, which sounds really weird, but I swear to God, like I woke up in the middle of one night and had like this character, and the first kind of good chunk of the story, I don't know what time of night it was, but I just like picked up my phone and was just like, I need to get this down. And then I wrote the rest of it, and then I saw the Dragon Soul Press call for dragon stories and thought I might as well submit it, and here we are. So it's one of those random things that's like, our brains are amazing. Sometimes they'll throw out completely random crap, but sometimes it's an interesting story. So I'm going to read you the first kind of section of The Dragon Harvester's Daughter.
Okay.
As the sun's first rays cast their light on the pale walls of her bedroom, Morella's eyes scanned over the words a final time. Worry not, my love, we'll be together soon. Morella's fingers crumpled the edges of the paper as her anger grew. Her brother always had been a fool, but this was unexpected, even for Lawrence. She shook her head, scrunching her hand into a tight fist around the vellum, mind whirring. She could deal with this before anyone found out about it. And when she returned home, she would ensure her brother never acted so rashly again. If only she had been born first, it would have been her rushing home to attend the family estate. It would have been her running this damned household, overseeing the trade that was so vital to their family's wealth. It would have been her who was able to choose a companion without fear of... There was a knock at the door, gentle and rhythmic. Without thinking, Morella tossed the crumpled note into the fire. When she retrieved the envelope from her dressing table, she noticed a small weight inside. A wonder she hadn't before in her haste to read the letter. She tipped the envelope over her palm, and there, to her shock, was the delicate golden band Mother had bestowed upon her firstborn to give to the woman of his choosing. I have never felt this way about anyone. You are all I want beside me for the rest of my life. She clamped her fingers over it, feeling the gold press into her skin as she quivered with rage. There had been dalliances in the past, flickers of potential where love might have bloomed, but for her, the family business came first. A shame my brother does not feel the same. But of course, as a man, he did not have to prove himself as she did. She had chosen a life of loneliness in an attempt to prove to her father how serious she was about running the Scallis Island estate, and still he had allowed her to come here only as Lawrence's assistant. Knock, 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 more impatient this time. Morella slipped the ring onto her right ring finger where it fit perfectly. She straightened down the front of her nightgown and called, "Enter," her voice harsh even to her own ears. When the girl opened the door and saw Morella, saw with a flitting glance that no one else was in the room, the beaming smile on her face dropped. Morella actually felt sorry for her. "Oh, Lawrence, what have you done?" "I'm sorry, mistress, I did not..." The young maid edged backwards, awkwardly bowing and hiding her face. "Come in," Morella said sharply. Momentary sympathy vanished. "I'll be occupying the master rooms now." The girl's eyes widened. "Master Lawrence, is he gone?" Morella took a moment of enjoyment in seeing the colour drained from the girl's face, clearly wanting to know more, yet understanding the incredible lack of decorum her questions would bring. "Summoned home. Our father, he..." Morella hesitated, unsure how much to say to this servant, who had already far overstepped her position. As she pondered, she glanced out of the window and saw a large black shape drift across the morning sky before gracefully diving out of view. She furrowed her brow. My eyes deceive me, it's too early for dragons. The idiotic girl mistook her hesitation for grief and rushed forward, hands held out in a comforting gesture. She stopped herself a mere hand's breadth shy of touching Morella's arm. I am sorry, mistress. Morella stiffened and sat taller, her eyes almost at a height with the girl's. Bold, far too bold. With a frown, she said, as I stated, I'll be running the manor here on Scallis Island. My brother will not be returning. And that is the first chunk of The Dragon Harvester's Daughter. I find it interesting, actually, like having now heard a chunk of yours, like it's completely different directions, I think, with the stories. Yeah. This is interesting, and I'm looking forward to reading the other stories in the anthology, because you can just do so much. Like, you just say the word dragon and people's heads go in all different directions, right? And yeah, I'm really looking forward actually to checking out all the other stories in it.
Yeah, I think they're going to be really cool. That's one of the nice things about the anthologies, is you get to see, you go one way with the prompt, and then everybody else goes like completely different directions. It's like they were all at the starting line. Someone said go, and they all just shot off in different directions, right? But it's all get there in the end. But it's cool to see that contrast between the different stories. Mm-hmm. And where's Lawrence? What's going on with Lawrence? I don't know. I need to know. I guess I'll have to wait a couple more days.
Well, to be honest, you don't see him. This story's more like about Morella and her relationship with the maid, which kind of develops. And it's a lot of my stories tend to be character focused, so I was kind of interested in her, like, you learn a bit more about why she's so kind of callous and ambitious kind of thing. But this was fun. So what is next for you, Eric? I know you've got so many short stories that have been picked up, actually. Like, what's the next one due out after Rain of Fire?
The next one due out after that's been picked up is called Pink Lights, and it's actually a sci-fi romance. Ooh. So I decided to try out for that one, just to, I'm always trying to push my genre limits and whatever to see what I can write. And that one's kind of it's about a guy that ends up frozen in space for a couple hundred years, comes back to find that Earth's gone, and his wife and friends and everybody basically, and he just kind of moves on through the process of the story to find love somewhere else. So that one's coming out next, and then I have about 16,000 or so other projects lined up. So give or take, maybe 15,500. But and they're all going to be hopefully coming out and stuff. If not, they'll be coming out on vocal, and then just working on my novel still. How about you? What do you got coming on?
So I'm working on book 2 in the Commune's Curse series. The release date of that has kind of been put up in the air a little bit, because it's just, it's one of those things, like, my mental health hasn't been great, so that's kind of impacted on it. So that's going to be released at some point in the future. But, check out Awakening if you're interested in a dark, character-focused, multi-perspective fantasy. I've got loads of short stories that are kind of half-written. I'd love to submit some more to Dragon Soul Press, just because I've seen some of their prompts. Like, there's a Pirates one that I'm really interested in writing a story for. Yep. I've got also another full-length novel that I'm working on, which is the working title is the Etherstone Project. It's another kind of dark fantasy. It's got a serial killer and like 2 young women who end up kind of they're opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of social class, but they're kind of brought together to investigate and find out who this killer is. So that's one I want to finish and then submit to agents. So that's kind of my plan over the next year, is like marketing for Awakening, focusing on kind of getting that word out there about that, and then finishing that book. I say this as if it's kind of the easiest thing in the world, but you and I both know that having a young child has a big impact on how much time you have writing. But you just got to keep at it, and you just got to find the time to do
it. Yeah, it definitely does take a toll on the time you have to write. But you just end up writing when you're more tired, I guess, than
Yes,
not.
this is what
But
I've learned.
yeah, you just got to learn to write tired. That's all.
Oh, sadly, yes, that is the truth. So, I mean, I guess that's all from us today. So, Rain of Fire is available in ebook, and there will also be paperbacks available for order as well, right? I believe.
Yeah. As soon as the 30th or 31st comes by, then they'll be available for paperback.
Yeah, I'm going to be getting a paperback copy because I feel like something more special about having, especially when you've got your own story published in it, like having a copy in paperback. But yeah, do check it out. There'll be a link. There's a link on my link tree. But check out. Yeah, my author website is lucyamclarenauthor.wordpress.com. Eric's is
ebhunterauthor.ca.
Yep, there we go. And thank you very much for watching, everyone.
Thank you.